What is happening, baby? It's your boy, Indo is my Nindo, also known as Dallas Clark, also known as The Curls. How y'all doing today? It's draft weekend for me. It's draft day. You see, I got the shirt on. I'm ready to go. I'm feeling professional. I'm ready to get down to business because that's what we're here to do, y'all. Conduct business. Now here today, I got a quick video for you because, like I said, it's draft day. I got some stuff to do. I'm coming at you guys today with my top 24 players, my top 24 overall ADP average draft positions for the 2021 fantasy football draft going in to National Draft Day. Now, of course, everything I've told you guys this before in some of my previous videos, in my previous how to dominate your fantasy football draft, to the 6 rules and to keep in mind in order to prepare properly for your fantasy football draft. And in my previous videos before, I've mentioned to you guys that your fantasy football Bible, all this information, all this research that you guys have been doing, all this information that I'm giving you, it's not a stone tablet. It's a general guideline for you to remember. And you may have your own personal opinions, but these are my top 24 picks that I have for this year's fantasy football draft, and I'm going to explain to you guys why. But before we get started, of course, as always, if you smoke them, now is the time to smoke them if you got them, baby. Let's get it cracking right about now, baby. Let's get into the news. Now, in your fantasy football draft, it's important to remember, of course, position by position, we all have our different positions that we value more. As you hear me talk about here always on the Fantasy Football Huddle, we are going to be always focusing on the running backs being the most valuable position. Those top-tier running backs are going to be the most valuable. Quarterback is typically the highest scoring. Wide receiver is becoming a bigger and better position every year. That offense is trending more towards that passing game. Tight end is becoming a bigger and better position. And if you notice, we don't talk about defense and kicker because defense does not win championships in fantasy football. And if your league even still does kickers, pick it in the 17th, 16th round. I mean, Justin Tucker's not going to win you anything, so pump the brakes. All right? But anyway, running back's going to be the most valuable. So typically, we're going to see those running backs always, those set it and forget it running backs, always be the ones at the top of the board. And you're not going to see any different case here. We do have a lot of wide receivers that are very valuable, but the lack of set it and forgetting running backs, the high amount of teams that go running back by committee, the amount of attrition that a running back needs. I mean, you're looking for 17 to 20 carries at minimum in your running back 1, running back 2. So the amount of attrition that a running back needs in order to be a successful and consistent fantasy football running back, I mean, it's a recipe for somebody to get hurt. It's a recipe for disaster in most cases. So having a good running back and having the backup to that good running back, having insurance, having lottery tickets that you can scratch when everything goes sour, that's very important. And it's also very important, one last thing before I get into the actual rankings, is to remember that there's a tier system typically with the wide receivers, and we're going to get really into depth here, and you're going to see that tier system broken down a little differently here on my fantasy football board than you may see on somebody else's. But you want to have those elite tier, that gold tier of running back. You want to have that elite tier of wide receiver, that elite tier of tight end. And it's clear when you look at the tight end and running back rankings and quarterback rankings, it's clear that you can see the rankings of the quarterbacks that you want, the quarterbacks that you would be happy with, the quarterbacks that you can work with, and the quarterbacks that you would be like, damn, why did I wait so long to go on quarterback? I mean, that's just an example on a position, but running back is even worse. Running back, by the 6th round, you'll find yourself, damn, these are the only running backs left on the board? I should have went running back a little earlier. So for me personally, my fantasy football league, me and my brother, me and my pops, me and my cousin, me and my best friends, you know, the Ginger, the Tree J, the Ty, the Benjamin, all my friends. Like I said, my older brother. We as soon as the season ends, it's always the same question that we ask each other, and everybody always gives a different funky ass answer. You know, You get the number 1 draft pick tomorrow in a fantasy football league. What pick are you going? Who are you taking? And everybody always says something random. I'm going Edgerrin James. I'm going Adam Vinatieri. I'll take Pat McAfee. I'm going to go RG3. Everybody always gives you a fake answer. Nobody ever gives you the real answer. But we're going to have to do that here today. So right now, you get the number 1 pick in your fantasy football draft. That's the first question that you need to ask yourself when you're setting up your fantasy football Bible. You get the number 1 pick in the draft. Who are you taking and why? The top elite tier of running back looks like this. Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Saquon, Zeke, Nick Chubb, so on and so forth. You've been looking at the rankings, hopefully. Me personally, I'm taking Christian McCaffrey over Dalvin Cook. That seems to be the argument over that number 1 pick, Christian McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook. Those seem to be the 2 running backs with the least questions. And I go Christian McCaffrey because, Dalvin Cook has been unable to complete a full 16 games, and now we're playing 17. Dalvin Cook has been unable to complete an entire season healthily at any point in his career. It's a very short career at this point. It's only, 3 or 4 seasons. But he has not been able to play a full 16 games. I also am not a huge fan of their offensive scheme. Now, it is great that Minnesota has that cold weather opportunity. You definitely know that the running game is going to be heavy with Dalvin Cook later on in the season because they play in Minnesota. There's a lot of weather that goes on. They play in Green Bay. They play in Chicago. So there's a good chance that Minnesota is going to find themselves in some cold weather and in some inclement weather. So Dalvin Cook is going to get a lot of opportunities. But for me, Christian McCaffrey, I have to go with Christian McCaffrey because, as I've said before, you've heard this going into last season, going into the 2020 fantasy season, Christian McCaffrey, if you took away all of his running back stats from 2019, every single running stat that he had, Christian McCaffrey was the 13th best wide receiver in a fantasy football aspect. That's a borderline wide receiver 1 with no running stats at all. No jet sweeps, nothing. Now you're adding on to the fact that Christian McCaffrey's got some magic in his toes. That boy's gifted on his feet. We can't lie to you. He doesn't have no Saquon Barkley legs or nothing like that, but Christian McCaffrey is talented. I do also believe that Sam Darnold gives them a better opportunity than Teddy Bridgewater. It also helps out the fact that Christian McCaffrey gives you an amazing amount of production out of that backfield as a pass catcher. Christian McCaffrey gets it done sort of like Le'Veon Bell did back in the day. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Le'Veon Bell, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, for the longest time, they had the number 1 wide receiver, number 1 running back, and number 2 running back, and number 2 wide receiver. And that number 1 running back, number 2 wide receiver was the same man, Le'Veon Bell. Antonio Brown was the best wide receiver on the team, of course, but Le'Veon Bell was the second best wide receiver on the team. And Christian McCaffrey is no different. Now everybody's also hesitant on that Christian McCaffrey injury. He's not coming off of an ACL tear. He did miss a lot of time in the season, but he's not coming off of a crazy injury that's going to slow him down. It's a shoulder injury. I don't think that Christian McCaffrey is going to see any slow down in his step. At the end of the day, you potentially think that he may have only been working on making his footwork better, since that's some of the only things he can be doing. Now, you do kind of question on his durability on taking hits, but there's a reason that he missed the entire season last year, came back and ended up missing those last few games because there was no point in it. But at the end of the day, I got Christian McCaffrey over Dalvin Cook. Now, I do got Dalvin Cook as a strong number 2 over Derrick Henry because Derrick Henry, at the end of the day, has had such an insane amount of carries. It's unheard of. Nobody in NFL history has ever taken the amount of carries. Let's look at it here, what Derrick Henry has taken. Nobody has ever taken the amount of carries that Derrick Henry has taken and completely stayed healthy. Now, it's been 2 seasons. Last season, he took 378 carries. The season before was very similar, not quite as much. But you're looking at almost, if not over, 700 carries in 2 years. He's a young man, yes, but wow, that is a lot of attrition. And the Titans don't seem to be, they did add Julio Jones. They do seem like they're going to have some more options in that passing game, but I would like to hope Derrick Henry stays healthy if I'm the person that ends up landing Derrick Henry. But You do have that question on, can he stay healthy? How long can he stay healthy running the way that he does in that offense that they have in Tennessee? It just makes me nervous. I do like Derrick Henry's skills. Derrick Henry is probably the most talented running back in the NFL at the current moment, the most feared running back in the NFL at the current moment. But Derrick Henry in a fantasy football aspect, it makes me nervous. But I do still have Derrick Henry at number 3. My number 4 pick might surprise some people, but I'm really big on this pick, and maybe because this is how my fantasy football league goes, or maybe this is just because I'm really liking this guy. But I'm a big fan of Ezekiel Elliott. You got to feed that man. I got Ezekiel Elliott as my number 4 pick, my number 4 running back in my fantasy football rankings right now. You got Dak Prescott back for the Dallas Cowboys, and I mean that Dallas Cowboys offense is explosive, and Ezekiel Elliott is not going to be the main focal point like Derrick Henry is in Tennessee. Ezekiel Elliott also had an off year last year, and because Dak Prescott got hurt, Zeke kind of got keyed on a lot, and Zeke had an off year last year, and he's looking to redeem himself. I think Ezekiel Elliott has potential to be the best running back in the league this year, just based upon the fact that I think between the Carolina Panthers, the Minnesota Vikings, the Tennessee Titans, and the Dallas Cowboys have a better all-around offense than the other 3 teams. I think that the fact that Ezekiel Elliott is not the main focal point of that offense, and he can just kind of eat. He can just eat whenever they give him the ball. He can just eat and continue to eat. That bodes well for Ezekiel Elliott. Now, you have heard Mike McCarthy talk about how many carries that Ezekiel Elliott's had. If you've watched Hard Knocks, you've seen, even in practice, they're trying not to give Zeke the ball because they think he's had a lot of carries in his career. Not nearly as many as Derrick Henry has had. But I don't think that's going to hurt Zeke. I think especially towards the end of the season, I think that might harm Zeke. It might hinder Zeke at the beginning of the year, and you might get frustrated with Zeke at the beginning of the year. So Zeke might end up being a really early trade target for you in those first couple of weeks on somebody that hasn't rid the roller coaster of fantasy football before. And Zeke underperforms in those first couple of weeks. They give Tony Pollard a little bit more carries, but as the season goes on and we approach closer to the fantasy football playoffs and even into the fantasy football playoffs, Ezekiel Elliott, I think, is going to be a absolute team changer on whatever team that he is on. Now, after Ezekiel Elliott, you're looking at running back wise. I still have Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones on the board. Now I'm going to explain why I have them not up here yet, because some people may have Alvin Kamara already up there. But like I said, these are my personal rankings. But I'm looking at my number 5 pick behind Ezekiel Elliott would be Devonta Adams. That'll be my first wide receiver taken off the board. I think Devonta Adams will outscore every other running back on the board besides the first 4 that I've already mentioned. Devonta Adams, he's just proven his skill. He's got Aaron Rodgers back. This could potentially be Aaron Rodgers last year. Who knows what the fuck is going on with that crap in Green Bay. But I think Devonta Adams at that point, after Zeke, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, and McCaffrey are gone, that's when you start looking and saying, man, maybe I don't go running back, and maybe I be that first person to take that game-breaking wide receiver off the board. And that's what I do in that 5th position. Number 6, right behind Devonta Adams, I have his teammate Aaron Jones, who is my next best running back, above Alvin Kamara, above Saquon Barkley, which actually, when you're looking at Saquon Barkley, He missed all last year with, I believe it was an ankle injury. He has not practiced at all this entire offseason. It's almost exactly what happened to Andrew Luck type stuff. But Saquon, even if he is ready for week 1, which it's questionable that if he is or not at the current moment, but even if he is ready for week 1, is Saquon Barkley going to be game ready? Is Saquon Barkley going to be ready to take that 17 to 20 carries that the Giants need him to take? I don't think so. I got Saquon a little bit lower than even I have right now on my 7th pick, behind Aaron Jones. Behind Aaron Jones, I got the hometown hero, Indianapolis' own, Jonathan Taylor. I think Jonathan Taylor, he's going to have a little bit of an issue. We've already experienced quite a bit of injuries on the Indianapolis Colts front, especially on the offensive line. I think Marlon Mack coming in, having Nyheim Hines still on the team, we have a really good running back room, and Jonathan Taylor's not going to be the sole proprietor of all of the running in Indianapolis, but he is still our running back number 1, And I think his talent in his second year is getting ready to show to everybody. I mean, coming out of the NFL draft, people were saying that he was the next Ezekiel Elliott. And, luckily for him, I mean, everybody can say luckily in a different way. Marlon Mack got injured, and Jonathan Taylor got that opportunity to take that step up. I think Marlon Mack is still going to get an opportunity in Indianapolis. I think Nyheim Hines is still getting his opportunity in Indianapolis. But I think Jonathan Taylor he's definitely going to be a force to reckon with. And I would take Jonathan Taylor because I believe Jonathan Taylor has less questions than Alvin Kamara, who is my 8th pick, and who also has less questions than Saquon Barkley, who is my 9th pick. So as you heard it there, we go Jonathan Taylor at 7, Alvin Kamara at 8. Alvin Kamara, yes, he's a great running back. Yes, he's done it time and time again, no matter what the offense is looking like, no matter what the other weapons are looking like. But the fact of the matter is, there's no Drew Brees. Michael Thomas is gone, at least the beginning portion of the season. So Alvin Kamara is going to be one of the main focal points of that Saints offense. I think that may hinder his ability from being as explosive as he has been before. Saquon Barkley, you've heard what I've said before. He's already not practiced after missing an entire season. I think that Saquon Barkley is not going to be ready. He's not going to be in full form for a few weeks, and I don't have a few weeks to wait. I want to win, and I want to win now. Nick Chubb is going to be my 10th pick in the fantasy football draft. I think Nick Chubb is a great running back. I think that Kareem Hunt is also a great running back. And the Cleveland Browns, there's been games last year where both running backs put up 20-plus points. I mean, there's no question about their offensive scheme, how well it works, and both running backs' ability. But I think because of Kareem Hunt, that always is going to hinder Nick Chubb. That's just a question. I mean, fantasy football is all about minimizing risk. So that's just a question that keeps me from wanting to draft Nick Chubb higher above any of the other running backs. Now, if you're in a 10-man league, this is where that 10th pick, first pick turn goes, and that first to second round turn goes. If you're in a 12-man league, we're still in those last couple picks. But the first pick in the second round or the 11th pick in the first round, for me, would be Travis Kelce. I think at that point, once all of those players are gone, with the value at that time, I think I go Travis Kelce at that specific moment before I start taking another wide receiver off the board, which would be Travis Kelce's own teammate, Tyreek Hill, the Cheetah. I mean, nothing really can be said to discount Tyreek Hill at the moment. I mean, everybody's talked about his height before, but that's never stopped the man from doing absolutely immaculate things, being questionable to be, can he beat Usain Bolt in a race? I'd be interested to see it. I still couldn't even tell you who would win that race. I think Usain, I don't know. We'll have to see. But at the 11th pick, I got Travis Kelce. At the 12th pick, we were looking at Tyreek Hill. Then coming from behind there, we still have a couple of running backs remaining on the board that I would be willing to take before I start going all out on wide receivers. At the 13th pick, I go Austin Ekeler. Austin Ekeler has really shocked and awed a lot of people. And I think Austin Ekeler finally having that premier role, finally having a healthy offense and a really good Chargers offense around him. Austin Ekeler has a lot of opportunity. The problem hindering Austin Ekeler is that they have a very pass-heavy approach. But what does help Austin Ekeler is with how explosive their team is, they may find themselves not necessarily losing in a big way in a lot of games. So running is not going to be knocked out of the question at any point for the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, right behind Austin Ekeler, I got Joe Mixon from Cincinnati. I think Joe Mixon's in for a return. I mean, same thing that happened to Dak Prescott happened to Joe Mixon last season. He lost his quarterback. His A.J. Green was gone all season long. I mean, Joe Mixon was the Cincinnati Bengals offense last season, and people shut him down. It was easy to shut him down. Now, after Joe Mixon goes off the board, you're looking at one more running back that I might potentially take in this mix-up here. But after Joe Mixon comes off the board, I'm looking at Stefon Diggs. I mean, I would put Stefon Diggs up a little higher. Like I said, it all depends on how your league works. But this is just a general guideline. Because the value of running back, after Joe Mixon, there's not much running back talent left on the board. So now with the remaining wide receivers and tight ends, you can start balling out and really start cashing in on what everybody else did not grab in that first couple of rounds, or in that first couple of picks. Now, in that like I said, that 15th pick would be Stefon Diggs. This would be the halfway point of the second round in a 10-man league, and this would be just like I think the third pick in a 12-man league in the second round. After Stefon Diggs, I go DeAndre Hopkins. I got Stefon Diggs over DeAndre Hopkins just because Josh Allen, I think, has a better big play opportunity to Stefon Diggs than Kyler does to DeAndre. Now, DeAndre, I mean, you've seen that Hail Mary. Like I said, that's a coin toss. I wouldn't be mad at you if you took DeAndre over Stefon Diggs. Me personally, I just see Stefon Diggs as a more valuable pick. I got DeAndre Hopkins just a little bit lower. There are some pretty good weapons on the Cardinals. They do have like I said, Kyler Murray doesn't have as big of an arm as Josh Allen does. And I think Stefon Diggs is a game breaker. I mean, so is DeAndre Hopkins. Like I said, that's a coin toss right there. But I got 15 and 16 Stefon Diggs. And then DeAndre Hopkins at 16. And those are going to be those that like. So once you look at Devonta Adams, Tyreek Hill, Stefon Diggs, and DeAndre Hopkins, that's that elite tier of wide receivers. That's a coin toss. Same thing when you look at those running backs. Once you go to those first four for me, Christian, Dalvin, Derrick, and Ezekiel. Once you go to those first four, those are those solid top tier elite running backs that you want to always have on your team. Then after that, you kind of start getting to that mid-tier. Now, that mid-tier of running back is a lot less explosive as that mid-tier of wide receiver. After we take those top four wide receivers off the board, we still got DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, and Calvin Ridley on the board. Now, I do have those three men in order right after Najee Harris, who I do find as the last valuable running back in that top 20 picks, even in that top 24 picks. So after Najee Harris, I go DK from Seattle. I think DK's his speed, his size, Russell Wilson. I mean, what else can be said about DK Metcalf? I think DK Metcalf damn near is in that elite tier of wide receiver. So is A.J. Brown. You're looking at Julio Jones going to be taking off a lot of that double coverage, a lot of that attention off of A.J. Brown this season. Jonnu Smith is gone, so it's kind of a give and take, a good wide receiver for a good tight end. But A.J. Brown's also in a good offense. He's also got Derrick Henry there, so he has a big play opportunity. And A.J. Brown, I think I would take DK over A.J. Brown. After A.J. Brown, I'm looking at Calvin Ridley from the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Calvin Ridley, I mean, he's completely shocked me last season. Now, Calvin Ridley, the issue with Calvin is going to be the issue that Adam Thielen had a few years back. Is without Julio Jones there, without that number one target there, Calvin Ridley is now the definite number one wide receiver with the Atlanta Falcons, and the defenses will be keying on him for that. How Calvin Ridley handles that number one cornerback, that double coverage, how he handles that number one wide receiver pressure is to be seen. But I do like Calvin Ridley right outside of that, or right at that top 20 mark, which would cap off the second round in a 10-man league. Now, if we're going in a 12-man league, I will give you guys my last four picks just for the 12-man league sake, because it's a big thing right now. It's almost the standard. At 21, after Calvin Ridley, the end of my mid-tier wide receivers have gone off the board. And Najee Harris, the end of my third-tier running backs have gone off the board. I'm looking at George Kittle. That's the most valuable pick at that time. Taking George Kittle, that's the most game-breaking pick. At that point, somebody's going to take George Kittle. You might as well be that one. After George Kittle, I got Justin Jefferson, because I think Justin Jefferson he's damn near in that second tier of wide receiver. He's almost got that respect to step up in that Calvin Ridley, A.J. Brown standpoint. I think he's just on the cusp. Right after Justin Jefferson, I got Darren Waller from Las Vegas. And yes, of course, I said it correctly this time. I have no idea why I called him Darren Walker last time, but that's the past. That's why I call it dope. But anyway, I got Darren Waller from Las Vegas. I think Darren Waller is an absolute game breaker. He's going to be the future of the tight end position. I think he's the next George Kittle, the next Travis Kelce. And, I mean, what is this, only his second or third season? I think Darren Waller is just going to get better. He's my third tight end, and he's my 23rd pick in the draft. Now, if we're going with a 12-man league, the last pick, the 24th ranked player for me would be CeeDee Lamb from the Dallas Cowboys. I'm really big on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, it might be Hard Knocks. It might be my family. It might be my namesake. But I really like CeeDee Lamb. I was watching a lot of training camp footage outside of Hard Knocks, but CeeDee Lamb was making some damn good catches. He's got an amazing route running. I think CeeDee Lamb, there's a reason why he's wearing number 88 for the Dallas Cowboys. You need to pay attention to that man. CeeDee Lamb has potential to be a really something special, especially behind this Dallas Cowboys offense that they have right now. As I talked about with Zeke, you got Dak Prescott back. I mean, you got a good wide. You still got Amari Cooper to his right. You still got Michael Gallup on the team. He's not the only target. CeeDee Lamb is free to run his routes. He's not going to see a lot of double coverage. He's not going to see, because they can afford that, because that Cowboys offense is too good. So CeeDee Lamb is going to be able to work, and I think CeeDee Lamb has the potential to really change your fantasy football team. So if you have the potential to get CeeDee Lamb with the second pick in your draft, and if you had the 12th pick, would have actually gone Christian McCaffrey and CeeDee Lamb. That's a pretty good combination, if I do say so myself. Now you need to start building off that. Now, after this first 2 rounds, of course, I'm going to be coming out with my top 100, my total top 100. We're going to be coming out with a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end, a quarterback special. We're coming out with a special for every position. But I really had to take care of that first 2 rounds, that top 24 picks, because that's the most important part of the fantasy draft. That kind of landscapes how the flow of the draft is going to go, at least from the very beginning. Now, like I've said before, this is not your final roster, and this is not a stone tablet. This guideline will help you, and you're going to come to me for the rest of the season over here at the Fantasy Football Huddle, presented by the Huddle Chat Sports Show, and we are going to be making it rain at the end of the season together. I'm helping you get into the money in your fantasy football league this year. Thank you so much for paying attention to my top 24 picks in the fantasy football draft this year. Of course, I want to make it a clear point. I should have said that earlier in the episode. These are non-PPR rankings. Now, the PPR, non-PPR, that will change things a little bit for you, but these were non-PPR rankings for you. I must actually probably come out with a PPR episode now. So stay tuned for that. I'm trying to come out with a ton of episodes between now and next weekend. So this next week, turn that notifications bell on. If you like my content, smash the like button for me. It helps me out more than you actually even know. But anyway, thank you guys so much for checking me out here on the Huddle Chat Sports Fantasy Football Huddle. It's time to get the up out of here, but before we go, I hope your plans never stop growing and the news never stops showing. It's your boy Indo is my Indo, and it's a pleasure being with you again. I am out of here. Peace out, y'all. Thank you.